DTV. I'm joined by Craig Jennings in the lead up to this week's NAB Challenge clash against the Bulldogs. And Craig, good start last weekend in Adelaide.
Yeah, we were really wrapped with the result. Firstly, we got 5 goals down, and statistically you only win 3% of games when you're 5 goals down. So for the boys to stick with what we'd been planning and training all summer, it's a real credit. Further to that, we kicked 7 goals in a row throughout that second and third quarter, and we nearly kicked 100 points in a shortened game of footy. So at the same time, defensively, things worked really well because we kept Port Adelaide at 2 goals across about 50 minutes of footy. So there's a lot of boxes that we ticked, and there's been some new things we've implemented with our ball movement that came out really well, particularly in the last 3 quarters. And we've got a few little changes with our defensive structure, and clearly to keep Port to such a low score was a real credit to the way the players implemented the plans. This
week coming up against the Dogs up at Craigieburn, your former side. I guess what's that like, and I guess the information you can bring?
Yeah, it certainly makes the job easier. So I had 10 years at Essendon, and then going to the Bulldogs, it was much easier to plan for Essendon because you know all the ins and outs. So certainly I know the ins and outs of the Bulldogs, but one thing I'll say about that team and that coaching staff is they're very innovative. So I went up and had a look and watched them play against GWS, and there was a few little things that they were trying, so we're pretty well aware of all that. But really the reality is in NAB Cup, it's a real focus on your game style and what you want to do. But there were things we put into place against Port Adelaide from an opposition point of view about negating their strengths and exploiting some of their weaknesses, and they came out really well. So same again with the Bulldogs this week. They've got some really big strengths in that team, and they'll really push for a premiership this year. So we'll have to put a little bit of time into nullifying things like their ball movement. But at the same time, every team's got some things or some opportunities where you can exploit them, so we'll be looking to do that. And really we want to have a really big NAB Cup leading into round 1, so we're going to round 1 full of confidence and more experience with the new game style or the tweaks to the game style that we've implemented over summer.
On match day, what's sort of your focus at the moment, your sort of role?
Yeah, it's a role that I've been doing for a long time, particularly at Essendon. So I'll sit alongside the senior coach, and what you find game day is all the coaching staff. You've got line coaches that really focus in on their areas. So what I can do is any decisions that they're making, I can look at it from an opposition point of view. So how the opposition might react to some of the changes, or I'll see things in the opposition that we may be able to exploit with some changes. So I'm really there to support all the line coaches, but sit alongside the senior coach and help them with their messaging at quarter time and half time and 3/4 time. But really it's a fairly broad job, and you don't know what you're going to get game day, and some weeks it goes really well all day and you'll have minimal input, but other weeks there's a lot going on, and you often spend a lot of time on the stoppage structure. That's where a lot of games can be won or lost, and there's a lot of things going on really quickly. So knowing what the opposition doing and are doing at those stoppages before you go into a game is a really big advantage. So in the box, I really just sit there and guide the coaches on what's going to happen next and the impact of some of their decision making.
Just finally, the NAB Challenge, it's approached so many different ways by different clubs. I mean, what's it been like for the coaches, how are they really approaching it?
Yeah, I think what Roos has implemented is a culture where we make every game is important to us, and I guess even more important in some ways this year with some changes in terms of the ball movement, some changes with our defensive structure, some slight changes with stoppages. So we're only building on what's gone on before, but some of those changes you would have seen on the weekend, and they've had a pretty big impact on the scoreboard, both in attack and defence. So the NAB Cup is a really good opportunity for the players to implement what they've been learning all summer. And you know, in some ways the scoreboard can be irrelevant as long as you're playing the way you want to play, but clearly winning form is what you want going into round 1, so the players are full of confidence.
All right, mate, good chatting. Best luck for this weekend against your former side, and hopefully the D's will get another win.
Thanks for that, Benny. Good.